Let's talk about one of the most beloved characters of all time that made a huge comeback, Frasier Crane.
What? I'm listening.
He started out in the third season of Cheers, which is set in a bar in Boston. He played a psychiatrist that was often looking for love. He was zany at times,
I am running with scissors!
but then often gave great advice.
What am I supposed to say?
The pain you're feeling now will pass in time, and you'll find yourself ready to take that risk again.
After 11 seasons, Frasier was given his own show, set back in Seattle, where he lived with his father and was often with his brother. He got his own radio show.
I just put a dent in my front bumper when I pulled into my parking space. Does anybody know what happened to that tennis ball I hung over my space so I wouldn't pull up too far?
Frasier wasn't really heard from for a while, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in 2023, Frasier made a huge comeback.
Do you really think we would trade John for White, Zinfandel, or any wine?
He had moved back to Boston to be with his son. It's now been on for 2 seasons and is very successful. One of the greatest comebacks of a television character of all time. Let's talk about a comeback of a pop icon, Britney Spears. She was a former Mouseketeer that burst onto the music scene in 1998 with her debut single, Baby One More Time. She released successful albums later, 1999's Baby One More Time, 2000's Oops, I Did It Again, and 2001, Britney made her feature film debut in 2002's Crossroad. She continued to top the charts with her next 2 albums, 2003's In the Zone and 2007's Blackout, but she had a series of personal struggles which forced her to take some time away from the spotlight. In 2006, she filed for divorce from her husband of 2 years, Kevin Federline. In the months following, she almost sort of lost her mind. She shaved her head, dating a paparazzo, checking in and out of rehab, and ultimately being hospitalized on an involuntary psychiatric hold. A Los Angeles court placed Spears under a conservationship in 2008, putting her father Jamie Spears and an attorney, Andrew Wallet, in control of her personal affairs and her multi-million-dollar estate. Later that year, the Grammy Award winner shocked the world when she made one of the biggest comebacks in music history. She released another hit album, Circus, and began touring the world again and landing appearances on television such as How I Met My Mother and Glee. One of the greatest sport comebacks came from the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The New England Patriots were trailing 28-3 in the third quarter of the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons in 2017. Brady rallied with 17 minutes remaining to close a 25-point deficit and tie the game at the end of regulation.
8-point game.
The game was decided in overtime when the Patriots prevailed,
Toss the right. Patriots win the Super Bowl.
making it the largest comeback in Super Bowl history, as well as the first Super Bowl game to be decided in overtime. How about one of the greatest military comebacks of all time? In 1588, Spain sent their formidable armada to Great Britain with the hopes of invading the country and overthrowing Queen Elizabeth I to remove Spain's then rival. However, it didn't work out the way they planned.
Well, it says, I love it when a plan comes together.
In May, the Armada set out with 2,500 guns sitting on 130 ships, 8,000 seamen, and almost 20,000 soldiers. They were slower and less armed than the English were. At the end of July, the English Navy began bombarding the 7-mile-long line of Spanish ships from a safe distance. They were taking full advantage of their long-range heavy guns. The Spanish Armada kept going, but their ranks were thinning out as the English kept assaulting them. They were forced in August to anchor in an exposed position off of Calais, France. Just after midnight on August 8th, the English did something really diabolical and very wisely sent 8 burning ships into the crowded harbor of Calais. The Spanish began panicking. They were forced to cut their anchors and sail out to sea to avoid catching fire themselves. They were so unorganized and out of formation, the English attacked them violently. It was a decisive battle. The English guns were superior and won the day. The Armada was devastated and was forced to retreat north to Scotland. The English Navy kept on pursuing them until they ran out of supplies. The Spanish were battered by storms and they suffered from dire lack of supplies and were forced to make a hard journey back to Spain. Some of the damaged ships floundered in the sea while others were driven onto the coast of Ireland. Anybody that might have made it to shore on the coast of Ireland might have been beaten by some of the people that lived there. What a loss the Armada had. Half of their ships were destroyed and some 15,000 men perished. Queen Elizabeth's decisive defeat of the Invincible Armada made England a world-class power. Well, like him or hate him, the 45th President Donald J. Trump made a huge political comeback. After losing the 2020 election, he decided to run again in 2024. He was shot at, called names like Hitler, fascist, Nazi. He decided to get a team of experts to help him out. They called them the Avengers. He would go in enemy territory, friendly territory, whatever show asked him to come on, he would go on, such as Joe Rogan. Well, after being reportedly down in the polls when it came for election day,
has been elected president.
He had a decisive victory, defeating Kamala Harris. Well, we have a bonus comeback. In the 1984 presidential debate, Ronald Reagan had a verbal comeback. He was running against Walter Mondale. Henry Truitt of the Baltimore Sun asked him this question.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
And here was his response.
Mr. Truitt and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
This even made Walter Mondale chuckle. You don't see much of that anymore. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll keep the videos coming here on Strange History. Hey, check out this video about Billy the Kid, one of the most famous outlaws of all time.